Live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 9/11 emergency series. Welcome back. Welcome back. We took last week off, and I needed some respite time and some self care time. And so we took last week off. So, good evening and welcome. I am Dr. Catherine E. James, and I wear many hats, but for this particular one, I am a transformational coach, speaker, and author. And I welcome you to our 9/11 series. This was birthed out of the emergent needs that were occurring as a result of COVID-19. And so if you followed us, then you will know that we have had first responders on, we've had nurses, we've had those who were recoverers of COVID. We've had some girlfriend time, if you will, just having conversations about living life well and walking out purpose and destiny. And so we take an opportunity to stop and have an honest, authentic conversation about that which matters at this time, what is going on and what is emergent in our culture. And tonight, a prelude of tonight, a month or so ago, we had a panel of about 5 women that discussed, that were mothers of Black sons. And we're continuing that conversation in a way tonight, along the lines of Black Lives Matter. And so I want to thank you guys for your time. Thank you for those who are going to be with us live. I appreciate you. Feel free to comment and we will get to the comments if we can. And for those who will watch the broadcast later, I appreciate you as well. What I do realize is time is one of the things that we don't get back. It's one of our most precious commodities. And so I appreciate your time that you will spend engaging the broadcast. Again, we invite you to have conversations with us. You can visit me at drcatherineejames.com. If you'd like to leave a comment or if you like to see what other services are available, that we can live life well. We have one. There's one life that we have. And so we have a responsibility of making the most out of it, of walking out purpose and destiny. And that's what we do in many of our conversations together. Now, tonight, I am super excited because we have with us 2 amazing guests. We have Dr. Hinton, Dr. Dawn Hinton from Saginaw State University, and we have Mrs. Clarissa Foster. And Clarissa comes with many, many hats. And actually, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But what I want to do is just tell you, ladies, that I am tremendously appreciative of your time as well. Just like I talked to the audience, your time is precious and you're taking time away from something else to have this conversation with us tonight. So I want to thank you and honor you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And then we want to bring in our resident self-care specialist, Joy J.P. Creel. And she's with us every time on the front and on the back end of the camera, making things happen. And so let's jump right in. And so, ladies, we had some questions, and I would like you to introduce yourself in a way of what brings you here. Like, what is it in your background? What is it in your history that basically had us to reach out to you? So introduce yourself. Tell us anything you like, but especially what is your contribution to this idea of Black Lives Matter. So, Dr. Hinton, let's start with you.
Beautiful. Dr. James, thank you so much for asking me to share today. I am a 20-year faculty member at Saginaw Valley State University, where I teach in the Department of Sociology. So my areas of specialization are race, feminism, and social movements. And so that kind of lends to my interest in what's happening within our community now. More recently or more locally, I'm involved in a number of local organizations where my concern is to ensure that people who are marginalized have access to resources. So I serve on the Saginaw Housing Commission. And then I also serve on the board for our public defenders, which is a relatively new organization. But the idea is that we want to make sure that we're providing an adequate defense for those who are indigent. So those who don't have access to resources, that we are actually providing resources for them, and credible resources, and resources that are trained, and people who are concerned about their needs. And so I sit on that board in order to make sure that that happens. But overall, even though I have no children, right, I do see myself as, I see all of the folks in my community as a part of my family. And so I feel a responsibility. And I really believe that for those of us who are given much, we are required to give much. And so I don't shirk that opportunity. I don't see it as an obligation or a responsibility. I see it as an opportunity to serve my people. So that's why I think I'm here.
Yes, I agree. Full heart, I can't even get the words out. Wholeheartedly. That's what I'm looking for. Wholeheartedly agree. So what it makes me think about is just the idea of, you see it as a privilege to serve. You know, and with the wealth of knowledge and your experience, your determination and passion, bringing it to the table to make sure that many who can't speak for themselves have a voice through you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for serving. Thank you for being the one who will fight the cause, or write the cause, if you will, for those who are unable to do it on their own. And thank you again for being with us tonight. I'm so looking forward to the continued conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Clarissa, Mrs. Foster, talk to us. Tell us what brings you here tonight.
Hello, everyone. I am Clarissa. I am a daycare provider. As you can see, my alphabet on the back and my little babies behind me. I also co-own a faith apparel line, God Be Goddin'. And I'm here because I am Black. I am a Black woman, and I exude that in everything that I do. I'm a daycare provider for Black children. It wasn't intentional, but as Dr. Dawn said, I feel like it is my opportunity to serve the people that I'm connected to by my race. Also, as a woman of faith, I think about like all the chapters in the Bible that are dedicated to lineage, and that stands out for me as a Black woman, because a lot of times people will try to make me separate my Blackness from my Christianity. Although, like, biblically, it shows that, like, we have all these chapters and books dedicated to who we come from. And like, we know that Jesus is the Messiah because of the line that he came through. So as a Black woman, I feel, a Black Christian woman, I feel a sense of responsibility to honor the people that I'm connected to by birth and by culture and by race. My daycare, I didn't set out for it to be all boys, but my toddlers are all boys. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to have 5 boys born in 2017 who I can teach how to be emotionally expressive. The number one piece of feedback that I get from any parent is how excited they are that their kids are articulate. And because for me, it's a big deal to know that at some point, these will be men, these will be Black men who know how to say, I didn't like that. That hurt my feelings. Please don't do that to me. Don't treat me that way, because like, the ones that are here, most of them have been here since they were a year old. So before they could talk, I taught them to sign, because it's very important to me that Black children know that they have words and that their words have power, and people should respond when they say things. So that's why I'm here.
So from the lineage, your birth lineage, from your mom and dad, to your spiritual heritage, from what the Bible says about culture and history, and your tremendous gift that you're given to those little precious Black boys, right? And the idea that they will be amazing communicators, you know, and intelligent about their emotions, and be able to effectively manage them.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And simply because you are a Black woman who has that history and understanding that you don't have to separate your spiritual, your Christianity from your cultural heritage,
Right.
that they both are married. There is no way to separate them.
Right.
There is no way. And so we had a book. What did Dewana say? Our children should know their voices matter.
Absolutely.
So this is Dewana's a fellow teacher. When we had Dewana was one of the mothers that was on for Moms of Black Boys, Black Sons, but she also has taught, I think, for maybe 30 years. And so thank you, Dewana, for being here with us. So ladies, Joy, what brings you here tonight?
Well, friends, this is my job, and I am here on every Friday night at 9/11. But in addition to that, particularly, I am grateful to be able to sit in the midst of people who articulate well all of the thoughts of my heart when it comes to this whole idea of Black Lives Matter, when it comes to this whole idea of being responsible with our heritage and being responsible with our culture. So I serve as the resident self-care specialist, and one of the things that I'm going to park with on this evening is our responsibility, even in all of this, to make sure that we're cared for in the midst of our participation, in the midst of our concern and all of that, because if we don't make sure that we're cared for all of those people who are watching us, then what story do we tell them? So just like for Clarissa and her boys, if she teaches them to say, I don't like that, when she's in a moment or when she needs a moment to have her own auntie private time, is she able to say that to her boys so that in a way that they understand that it is not anything taken from them or whatever the case is, but that she is caring for herself in that moment so that she can care for them in the next moment. And so, and of course, with Dr. Dawn being the instructor extraordinaire, use words I'm familiar with and all of that. And I can say without stuttering, but those kinds of things, like what does it take for you to care for yourself in the midst of all of this? Because this is emotional upheaval. This is emotional upheaval when you, work on a campus where you have to continually state your opinion and continually state your position and continually stand. How do you care for yourself in those times? So you all will hear from me from a self-care perspective on tonight. So that is why I am here.
Thank you, Joy. All right, ladies, when you hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, what is your response? What comes to your mind? Let's start with you, Clarissa. Black Lives Matter. What do you think? What do you experience?
So I wrote a blog early 2014 because I was at a basketball game for I think it's Frederick Douglass High School. I don't know the official title, but it's an alternative school for boys here in Detroit, and they were playing against some school outside of Detroit, so mostly white kids. But I didn't notice that it was mostly white kids because all the starters were Black boys. So right now the name of the town escapes me, but while I was there, I just Googled like what's the Black population of this place, because all 5 starters were Black boys. But then I look over into their supporters, all white kids. And I look at the population, the Black population of whatever city that was is 3%. So I named the blog 3% Majority, and talked about how Black kids get to play sports for white schools. They get to be the token. They get to be the diversity stuff. And that's where they're the majority. That's where they matter. That's where Black kids matter. And then fast forward about 6 months after I wrote that blog, Mike Brown got murdered. And that's when we find the popularity of the organization Black Lives Matter. So when I started hearing that phrase, it resonated with me heavily, because I had been thinking that entire year, where do Black people go where we matter?
Wow.
And we can see that all through sports and entertainment. That's where we matter. But as an educator, I see Black kids get forgotten in so many different systems, like, and not even just from an educator perspective. Just as a Black person, I get a rash on my arm. I'm trying to figure out what it could be, so I look up heat rash. All the pictures are white people. And nobody else can get a heat rash, you know.
Yeah.
So everywhere in our world, I'm reminded that I'm other, and I'm reminded that when I need to find something for myself, I have to be specific about it. So to hear the phrase Black Lives Matter and to know that it's so triggering for people is upsetting for me, because to say that I matter is literally the bare minimum. I exist. I am a person. I am worthy of respect. So my mattering is not even a question.
Yeah.
But when I look at schools and I look at the books and I look at popular media and everything, it's like, am I sure that I matter? Because there are no people who look like me, and the ones who do, they are always some kind of anomaly. We always have somebody who's exotic or something like that. Like, I was looking at one of my old posts about what's the actress, Lupita? I can't think of her last name. Dark skin with the short hair. And I was like, it's dope that she's making it, but did we really need her to act as a slave before we could acknowledge that dark skinned Black women matter and that they can be beautiful? And like, right now everybody's complaining, like, we're taking down the Confederate flags and we're changing Aunt Jemima, and people are like, this isn't what we asked for. We want the policies changed. And I'm like, we want the policies changed, yes, and we want all those other subliminal messages that say we can be stereotypes and mammies and we can be scary looking people. That needs to come down too, because I interact with those subliminal messages way more than I interact with the policies that are in place. Because, like, for me personally, I live a super Black life right now. I work for myself. The daycare is in my basement. My part-time job is in Detroit at a Black-owned restaurant. So, like, I don't really interact with a whole lot of white people and white supremacy in my everyday life. But I do get syrup. I do see these signs. And so when I hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, it's like, absolutely, we matter, and we are worthy of respect, and we are worthy of honor and dignity. And to know that it upsets people for us to say our existence is important is all the more reason for us to say it louder.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. It leads me to think about the absolute insane reality that phrase is even necessary.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane that it's necessary to say it. And it is necessary, unfortunately. It is necessary. And so, yes, all of these realities, all of these pieces, when you like, I love your phrase where you says, where do Black people matter? Go. What did you say?
Where do we go where we matter? Where do Black people go where we matter? I think that's what I said.
Yes, I don't know what I wrote, because that is not what I wrote. No. Anyway, do Black people go? Anyway, you said it so eloquently, but basically, where do Black people go that we matter? That idea, and and then to have this idea, this notion, this picture, yes. So you've got these 5 starters, and they matter here, and we certainly can see it throughout sports, and they matter here, and those are all anomalies. They're all anomalies, but as an educator, and all of us are educators, as a matter of fact, it just happened to be that way. All of us are educators, but as educators, we can see so many school-related days where it doesn't look like that Black kids matter.
Right.
Because what they're experiencing oftentimes to get to school, and then once they're in school, and then so so the thing that is going to affect them for the rest of their lives, and oftentimes that's what we find: healthcare, education, opportunities, the things that's going to affect generations for the rest of our lives. Often it doesn't look like we matter in those situations.
And Dr. James, what's really interesting is that we've been fighting this battle for a long time. This is not new. This is not Trayvon Martin new. This is not Mike Brown new. This is in no way new. And so when as Clarissa was speaking, this whole idea that she's living a super Black life. First of all, I love that idea. Living a super Black life. I strive to live a super Black life. But it just brought back this thought that we have been fighting this very same battle since the very beginning. So this notion of police brutality and this notion of state-sanctioned violence against Black people is not a new idea.
Yeah.
And then when we start to have these, I'm gonna tell you what frustrates me.
Okay.
When we start to have these conversations, and then and look, y'all, okay, I need to say this up front. I don't sugarcoat very well. I need y'all to bear with me, okay? So we have these conversations, and then our white colleagues and our white friends come up to us and say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know." Good Lord, for real? That's where you're going with this, right? You did not know, right? 1960s, we teach this in school. You learned about Rosa Parks. If you didn't learn about nobody else, you learned about Rosa Parks. And Rosa Parks was struggling with police brutality. They literally kicked her off the bus, right?
Yeah, right.
So this whole idea that you didn't know offends me.
Yeah.
It offends me for you to come to me and say, "I had no idea you were struggling like that."
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? Mm-hmm. I don't know what you can do. And can y'all see this is fresh on me, right? Look, Clarissa talking about money. I don't know what you can do. What I need you to do is to go out and figure out what you are willing to do, and then do that thing. Yeah. Stop asking me. And I've had this same conversation with everybody who I talk about Black Lives Matter with. I'm doing my emotional labor. Yeah. Now, I don't have any children. Right. I have nieces, I have nephews. I interact with Black folks all the time. I see them absolutely these are my people. Yeah. Right. When there is this police brutality against Black folks and it is unaddressed by our institutions and our structures, I feel personally attacked. I feel like you came over here in Saginaw, on the west side of Saginaw, to my house and did something to me. No exaggeration. And I'm telling you, I feel the pressure. I feel the weight of it. And then you come to me and ask me, well, what should I don't know what you should read. I don't know. You're going to have to figure that out. Because right now, Dawn is trying to figure out how to help her community. Yeah. Right? How to push us through.
I don't have time for all these questions.
Yeah. Girl, are you with me though? You with me? So I can't do your emotional labor for you. Yeah. You need to get that together. Yeah. And I'm going to work over here with my people, with these Black folks. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. And I'm not going to talk forever because I have lots to say. I'm going to be honest with y'all. So on campus, we have some very well-intentioned white people. Very well-intentioned. Love them. I love them. They are very good people. Yeah. And one of the things that as Black faculty, we have asked them to do, and we didn't write these words, but this was my thought in my head. Go get your white people and you them. Don't ask me to do a workshop because I'm not going to do it. Don't ask me to do a task force because I'm not going to do it. You, Mr. White Man, who is the ally, who is my ally and who I appreciate and who I have worked with, be an ally. Go get your white people and explain to them that it's not appropriate for them to make our Black students feel uncomfortable in classrooms, for it's not appropriate for them when they're hiring people to talk about this person, it's not a good fit. Yeah. Whatever fit means. Yeah. You go get them. So this whole idea of Black Lives Matter means a whole lot to me. It means this whole idea, I'm a sociologist by training, this whole notion of structure, right? Of social structure. Yeah. And the fact that we have justified institutional violence against Black people,
Mm-hmm.
and we continue to defend it. And then when Black people push back and say, "Look, stop doing that," you ask, "Oh, well, what's the problem?"
Mm-hmm.
You are literally on my neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And nobody makes you get up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what Black Lives Matter means to me, is that we have been struggling with this issue since Frederick Douglass, since the first slave ship came over. And we are still struggling with the same issues. And our white allies and our white colleagues are acting like they don't know what the issue is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That bothers me.
Thank you. I hear you. I hear you. And the only word that keeps coming to me tonight is that it's insane. That it's absolutely insane that we are still here. That, and I really can appreciate that bringing up that we, if you don't know anybody, you definitely know Rosa Parks.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And you know that there was this problem, and this problem has been going on and on and on. So I've been having conversations as well, and the idea that I get it. No one has walked our journey but us. Do you see? No one else was brought to America on slave ships. No one else. The indigenous people were here.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else came by choice, and we were brought here, and immediately we were forced into experience a system that will forever, right, try to keep us in our place.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless you have that experience, you don't get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get it. There are some things that you can get. You can understand oppression, right? You can understand systemic limitations
Mm-hmm.
that you could get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could get that. And so I get that you won't get, when we talk about microaggressions, or we
Mm-hmm.
talk about the fact that we've got to question when someone looks, if we go into a place and someone looks at us a particular way, then we've got to question, is the look because you're surprised, because I don't know, or is it simply the color of our skin?
Yeah.
And so, Dawn, the piece that for me that's so powerful is there are some conversations that white people need to have with white people, just because they won't be able to hear us. We
Say that louder for the people in back. I don't think they heard you.
Yes, they won't. And I, and I've had those conversations and so one of the things that I felt as my responsibility is to be the bridge, because that's just how God has created me, is to be the bridge and to have the conversations across the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so having the conversations and saying, hey, these are the experiences, these are my realities. And so let's have that conversation so that we can, because at the end of the day, we've got to live together.
Right.
All of us.
Now, Dr. James, this is the thing. So I appreciate that, because I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think that somebody has to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be there to be that bridge, because right now you can't come to Dawn and ask her to do that, because
Absolutely.
Dawn can't do it.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be able to, as a Black community, you need to be able to step in the gap for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Right now, I can't do the work, because if you were to ask me to those tables right now,
yeah. And
it
so
would be a different kind of experience, right?
What I love. Go ahead, Dawn.
No, but the problem is, because of course we've been talking about this for a while, and I did have a conversation with another local radio host, and a Black guy, really nice guy, who said to me, because I told him the same thing, who said to me that this is our opportunity to get access to some stuff. I said, I hear you, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I need you to step out. I said, now, if you think there is and there are opportunities to do stuff, I need you to go do that. And because I need you to stand in the gap for me because I can't do it right now.
Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
right now, I'm having this conversation with you guys, and I'm very selective about who I talk to about this because I don't do this for the white gays. I'm not doing this for white folks.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because this does something for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, in hearing and listening to my
Clarissa?
people,
Okay.
I don't feel alone. Right.
Mhm.
I see that some folks are able to do the work that I can't do. So we're not dropping the ball.
Yeah.
And I see what other folks are doing in order to move us forward.
Yeah.
But we have to be, as a community, in the space where we allow other people to heal if they're
Yeah.
not in that space. You know what I'm saying?
Tell that. Help me unpack that last part. I'm not
So
sure if I understand.
I'm not in the place to have those conversations with whites about what you can do in order to help the movement. I'm not in that place right now. I don't know how to give them space for what I see as intentional ignorance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know how to give them space for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want to be there
Mm-hmm.
and hurt people because I will hurt you
Mm-hmm.
because,
Mhm.
right, I'm hurting.
Absolutely.
So I need for those folks who are able to do that work, but also give me space
Gotcha.
to not do that work.
And that's what I wasn't sure about. Joy, I'm in 1 second. And Dawn, what I'm really, really grateful for is that because what I wanted to happen, which is exactly what's happening, is that none of us are the same.
Mhm.
And all of us have different responsibilities and roles and callings. And we must give each other permission to be who and how we've been called to be.
Mhm.
And so I'm really grateful that piece came out so we can just be honest and, like you said, give room for what is called for at the beginning, at the time, so that we all can move forward. So we got to so I had an experience, and it's this idea that being pro-Black is in no way anti-white. It just means that I am pro-Black, that there are some needs within our culture that we need to take care of. And so my focus is on that. And so in that sense, I'm going to lose my thought as to why that even came up. But
no,
I want to jump in.
Mhm.
Okay, so for me, being pro-Black is anti-white.
Mhm.
Not necessarily anti-white people, but anti-whiteness and white supremacy, because whiteness doesn't exist outside of a system of racism. Because if you talk to white people, they'll tell you where their people are from.
Yeah.
They can tell you where their grandparents are from or where their parents came from. But we see them all as white because racism erases culture. Like whiteness is the erasure of culture. Like, so the daunting feeling that we think of that comes along with whiteness, I am very much so anti that. And I feel like white people get so caught up in their feelings that they think I'm saying I hate them. Like, no, I don't hate you. I hate the system that made you not realize what happens in my life. Like, I hate everything that comes along with what your ancestors did to mine, and I hate the fact that you feel like I have to teach you about it. But but the reality is, because part of me wants to say, like, y'all got the same internet that I have, but what I've learned recently is that our internet is as segregated as our lives are. Like, my best friend was telling me that, like, she works with a bunch of white people. They'll show her a funny meme and she'll laugh about it. And they're like, you never saw this? And she's like, no, never. And then she'll show them something like, I don't know, Kermit meme that every Black person has seen, and they've never seen it. But it's because we interact on the internet the same way that we interact in real life. Yeah. Like, we have this fake integration, but we don't talk to each other. We don't know what the other people are doing. So I am very much so anti anything that separates people for no reason. And whiteness absolutely does that. And I also, and just to go back to the everybody has a role piece, one of the things that we really need to work on is actually understanding what happened during the time that we call the civil rights movement. Because what we see is Dr. King, Rosa Parks, got the laws changed, kumbaya. But that's not what happened. Like we forget about the small pieces, like all those pictures that come to mind when you think about water hoses and stuff. Somebody was a photographer. Like, so that person was not up there speaking, but they were taking pictures. That was their role. Like somebody, like we know that it was staged for Rosa Parks to get arrested and stuff. Somebody had to put that plan together. Like she was being a secretary, but she decided to change her role. Like we have to start acknowledging that there were other people. So my other piece of training is from the Children's Defense Fund Freedom School. And I am an Ella Baker trainer. Ella Baker is somebody that so many people don't know, but we all need to know, because she was the one who was teaching Dr. King what to do. And she stood against his solo leadership, because what she understood as a servant leader is that that strong people don't need strong leaders. That's what she said. Strong people don't need somebody to speak for them. What we need is to energize our community to speak for themselves. And there were people who were teaching people how to speak up for themselves. There were people who were leading trainings. There were people who were getting the materials. Like, you may not be the person to get hosed down, but you can write a poem. So write a poem. Do your part. And we have to stop shaming people for what their part is. What I'm most sick of now is people saying stuff like, all y'all saying this stuff on the internet, hashtag activism. But the reality is, so many people wouldn't even know what's going on if it wasn't for social media. Like, the revolution may not be televised, but it might be tweeted, because that's exactly what's happening. And we need to get, like y'all said, we need to give space for things to happen the way that they're happening. Everybody doesn't do it the same way, and that's okay. Like, I'm not going to be the person to have conversations with white people. And it's not because I have anything against white people. I'm too busy loving my people. I'm too busy liberating my people. Like, me and the boys, we're working on our quotes right now. I say Nina Simone says, and they yell, to be young, gifted, and Black, because I need Black people who gonna love being Black. I need Black people who gonna love each other. My kids call me auntie. And that is the greatest honor to me, because aunties are the unspoken heroes of the Black community. Like, they're the people who love you like a mama. You can talk to them, they train you, and they give you what you need. At the end of every day, I let each one of them come into my lap and we sing our auntie love song, because I need Black people to know that we love each other, period. We are family, and we're going to respect each other. And that's my role. I'm not going to talk to white people. I don't care enough. But what I do care about is Black kids who grow up loving being Black. That's important to me.
Thank you. And that role piece is absolutely imperative. And that idea of us giving each other permission to be okay with what our role is what we've got to do well, because we all have purpose and destiny and a call, and we've got to walk that out. Okay, Joy, I know you've been trying to get in. Go for it.
Whoo, child. I'm trying to jump in on every corner, but there's been so much that is amazing. And there was one comment that came up that, and it was from Sandra. I can't find it right. Oh, here it is. There was one comment that came up, and it said, "Thank you, Dr. Don, for your transparency and simply saying, I'm not there." And I think that piece for me is the most important piece. Like Clarissa just talked about this whole idea of knowing where you are. And I think in this time, in the times that we are, self-awareness is key. That is the best thing you can do for self-care, is be aware. Be aware when you're hurting. Like Dr. Don said, when I can't go to the table hurting, because I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah.
I can't go to the table. I'm not going to do it. And so that makes the most sense to me. So we have to be aware of where we are. And you know, some of us can have conversations, and I had engaged in some conversations, and I'm learning like, yep, that's probably not going to be the place where I park, is having these conversations for lots of different reasons, because I'm not here to prove a point. I'm not here to prove a point, because I didn't make this stuff up. I didn't make up slavery. I didn't make up I didn't make up the fact that something could be done for 2 years before we even got a taste of freedom, which wasn't really freedom. I can't make. Do you see what I'm saying? I can't make this stuff up.
So how can you answer for it? That's the point, right?
And that's the piece. I don't know what happened to your camera, Clarissa, but it went off, just in case you don't, if you don't know. But and that's the piece, Dr. Dawn, right? Like you come into this place where you have to understand, we have to understand where we are and what it is that we can and cannot answer for. And here's the thing, like, I'm not asking anybody to answer. I'm asking you to act. I'm not asking anybody to answer. And so if that acting is going into your community and having the conversation, if that acting is doing whatever it is that acting is for you, I'm not asking you to answer. I simply am not. And so what I am asking for, and that I've gotten real serious about lately, is reparations. I absolutely think white people, it's time to run our money, and because there's no other way to reconcile what has happened. Like, I don't need an apology. I don't need another prayer service. I need you to close the wage gap, the wealth gap, because like that's what it's gonna take. Black people and Africans and their descendants were treated like capital. They were treated like property. And so, number one, they were capital, so you owe us capital for that. And they were working all day for nothing, so you owe us per hour for the money that they should have been making. And I want the equivalent of the 2020 version. And I also want reparations for Jim Crow. Everything that white people and white systems have done, it is time to pay. And paying for me is not an apology, because apologies without change behaviors are not apologies. Like, every time something happens, Black people are like, oh, we need to boycott this and boycott that. And like, you know, while we can have conversations about how boycotts can be more successful, but it comes from the heart of it is we need to change the way that we deal with money and whiteness. So if we understand that as the oppressed people, I know the oppressors you have to understand that part of what lets you continue to hold power is money. Like, your white ancestors owned people, and then when the laws changed, you made them sharecroppers, so they still died in debt to you. My great aunt Louise, she is 94, and on her 90th birthday, she had a birthday party, and in her bio it says that she was born into slavery in 1926. What? So wait a minute. She was born into slavery. Like, that wasn't a typo. That was what happened. She was born into slavery even after the law changed. Like, we are owed so much stuff. Like, we know that the science backs it up, that when Black people were enslaved, they dealt with a lot of trauma, and it literally changed the DNA that they passed along. They were only able to pass along damaged DNA. You owe me for the damage in my biology. Like, I read an article the other day, it was like, we're mad about the statues coming down, and she's like, we don't need the statues. My Black life is a monument of slavery. The fact that Black people exist is because we were raped. You owe me for raping my ancestors. Run me my money, run me my time, give me that CEO position. Like, that's why every time Black people get access to stuff, we dominate. It's never because we were not able or we were inferior. You just didn't give access. White people, move out the way.
Right.
That job that you know you don't deserve, that you know you don't actually have the credentials for, that you only have because of who you know, move out the way. Take that social capital and give it to the Black people that you know who actually have the cultural capital and the intellectual capital to take that job. That's what I'm asking for. White people, move out of spaces where you know you haven't earned it. And when you move out, make sure they give me the money that they were going to pay you.
So it's interesting, Clarissa, because it's not just, we don't have to go as far back as slavery. We don't have to go as far back as 1926. If we think about what happened with when our veterans came back from the war, I just had this conversation with Joy. They moved white veterans, and this was a federal program. Federal Housing Association moved white veterans into suburbs and said Black folks can't move out there. Move Black folks into the hood. So when these white folks then sold their houses, these suburban houses appreciated in value tremendously. This is my mother, my grandmother, right? This is not my great grand, right? This is recent, right? And so when they sold it, they more money. They had more money to leave to their children. This housing bubble in 2008 more negatively affected Black folks and Hispanic folks than it did whites, because they were targeted. They were targeted for these things, right? So if we can just fix those things, right?
Like, just go back to 2008.
Come on. We don't even have to go back that far. Just give us our millions you owe from when you took advantage of us then. So I think that the problem that many white folks have, I didn't enslave you. My mama didn't enslave you. But the real issue is what you mentioned earlier, this whole notion of white racist supremacy and how that actually advantages people who, I don't care if you didn't own slaves.
Right.
You still are reaping the benefits of the fact that we live in a society that is white and that is racist, and that promotes white supremacy overall. So if we can acknowledge that, then I think that we'll make some progress. But the real issue is that people are not willing to give up the stuff they have in order to ensure equality. People aren't, and they're going to talk a good talk. And all of these people who say they're our allies and they want to be down with us, and they come to the picnic, and we done kicked out people in order to invite them in.
I canceled the picnic.
All these people, right? We don't know who they voting for when they go into these election booths, right?
Yes,
we don't
do.
know what their politics are when they get home. We don't know what is going on, because somebody is voting for Trump. He's not getting in there by, somebody is voting for these very conservative Republicans. Somebody is voting for these folks. We know it's not Black women because we proved that already. So it's somebody. Right? So the real issue is you have to be willing to give up some stuff in order to ensure access to resources for everybody. And they're not willing to do that. Oh, Dr. James, you're muted.
Thank you. Whew. So a lot. And so my concern is in the education piece, right? And so we've got to educate internally and externally for those who are of us who call to educate externally. You got to do the education piece. There are ways in which we are helping ourselves to not rise, if you will. Right? There are some things that we're doing that is not helping our cause and moving forward. And one of it is simply knowledge and really understanding our history and understanding money, how it works, understanding our need to take care of our own personal business and our business in the community. And so what you've got with Clarissa doing with the boys, that's setting them up to make sure that they're better positioned to address and to see things coming far off. To be able to stand up to racist and systemic issues that will basically oppress them. So they'll have their voice, they'll have their emotions intact and those kinds of things, so they can make wise decisions. And then Dawn, you on the campus, taking care of educating those, Joy with her self-care, and me doing all the things that God has called me to do. So that our own individual roles and educating right where we are, and then having. So for me, for those of us who are online, having the internal conversations so that we can be equipped to better address the external factors. If you know what I'm getting at, so that we can better be equipped. So we need to have conversations amongst ourselves to say, hey, what are you doing with yourself every day? You know, where are you going? How are you? What are you planning for next year? What are you planning for 5 and 10 years down the road? And how are you making sure that this happens, not just with you, but with the people who are living next door to you? And what are you doing, you know, with the store owners or whatever? Do you know what I'm getting at as far as our own internal responsibility? And so having those conversations here, and there's so many pieces. I'm trying to slow down here and get all the different pieces here. And then when we have the conversations across the line. So Clarissa, I know you know this book, right? Letters Across the Divide.
I can't see it. I think I've seen it before.
So
I don't know that book.
You know, okay, I thought you had to have it in school. Maybe you didn't. So basically, this is a conversation between two friends, black and white, and they just basically, they were, the black man was a pastor, and he asked the white man to come and be like a co-pastor with him. And the white man, Brent, basically had some challenges because he still had some issues that hadn't been resolved for him. Right. And so it led to them as friends now having to have conversations they'd never had before. So out of our conversation, what I really can appreciate is that there are those of us who are called to minister right here at home. So that's what we're called to do. That's what we're doing well. That's our responsibility. Then there are those of us who are called to minister at home as well as minister across the line, so that we can be in a country where it's going to be more than just us. And so being articulate about what we want, that's what I just heard. That was so powerful about what I want, what I need. And so the idea of marches, we can march all day long, but can we articulate what it is that we want to change in this country? And can we come up with a plan that will address the needs of righting some wrongs that, yes, perhaps there are lots of people today who are not directly responsible. They're not directly engaged in what has happened historically, but it doesn't negate that there was historical wrongs that need to be righted. And so it's having the language for that, I think, is important for our community. So as we are talking outside of our community, as we're talking, so that we can have the language to say what is it that we would like to have happen, and how do we see that happening? You see, and so some of that was articulated as well. And so, I'm going to I am going to, I think, go to some, where are we? We almost at time, but I'm going to go to some of the comments, because the comments, we haven't even really delved into the comments, and they have been on fire. Brenda is saying exactly. Dewana saying, true, Dr. James. Oh, we know, Letitia. We better vote, though. Right. We better vote. And you brought up the idea that folk don't like to, folk don't like to let go of what theirs, don't like to let go of what's comfortable.
Of privilege.
Sure.
Unearned privilege. And the crazy thing is that they believe that they've earned it. Yeah. And that's the thing that really is troubling, is that they believe that because they have it, they earned it. And one of the things that we teach in our society is about individualism, is that you get what you get because you worked hard for it. That's what we teach. And one of the conversations that I have with my students absolutely all the time, I ask them, can everybody be rich? Can everybody in the U.S. be rich? And the answer is no. You have to have somebody to exploit. If you live in capitalism, you got to have a population of people who are so poor that it justifies folks working for minimum wage. Because what we'll tell the people who are working for minimum wage, you don't want to do this job? You know how many people I got over here who are looking for jobs? So it justifies minimum wage. So it justifies the exploitation of the poor, to the point where we have created a population of people that we call the reserved army of the unemployed. These are people who are permanently unemployed. But what we teach constantly is that people get what they get because they worked for it. The implication is, if you don't have it, you didn't work for it. It's not about structure. It's not about system. It's not about access. It's about simply your individual effort. And that thing is so pervasive, not only in the minds of whites who are benefiting from it, of middle class and rich whites, but of poor whites who are not benefiting from it, of Black folks who think that they can get some of it if they just keep working hard. It's so entrenched in our psyche that it's difficult for us to let go of this notion that people are rich because they've earned it. Or people are in these positions because they've earned it. People are president of the United States because they earned it. And I tell people all the time that Barack Obama, brilliant. I think do I think he's the most intelligent person, or the person who could have been the most intelligent person in the US? I don't know, because we didn't look. Yeah. We are not looking for intelligent people. We are not searching for the cream of the crop. That's not how people get these positions. And I ask people to think about that. How do we think that Barack got his job? How did Trump get the job? How did these presidents get elected? Is it really about, individual effort? And is it really about intelligence? And is it really about ability? Or is something else at play here? So I'd like to challenge us to think about that, because that really prevents us from asking for what we are owed, like Clarissa said, because we think, Black folks think we don't have it because we didn't work hard for it, because that's what we've heard since we were kids.
Like one of so many thoughts. So one thing I wanted to share, I met with a group called the National Council of Elders, and they are elders who get together and they talk about things that they're doing now and what they did in the past. And one of them shared with me what we call the civil rights movement. They called it the Black-led struggle for freedom and justice. And it was so important to me to learn that, because that's when I started to reframe how I saw the civil rights movement. Because like one of the things that you said, Dr. James, like, we can march all day, but we need strategy. But like, even the way that we are taught about civil rights is steeped in white supremacy. We are purposely not taught about how many meetings they had before they marched, and all the conversations they had about why they were marching and what was the ultimate goal. All we see in our books are the marches, and then you see the success. So we grow up thinking that's all you needed to do. And what I really want from Black people is for us to deny our Americanness and lean into our Africanness. And because people of color, of all the colors, we tend to be community oriented. America is individualist, and it's killing us. We need to connect with each other and depend on each other and work together. Like I said, my kids call me auntie because we're all family. I need you to know that any adult that comes into this space loves you, and they deserve your honor and respect. And that's how you treat Black people. And then that's how we'll create a community. I went through a workshop where they basically did like a simulation of when Africans were stolen, and we were all in lines, and everybody in our line, we were connected by the wrist, and we could only say one line. There were 3 lines. One line could say, I am because we are. The next line could say, we are because I am. And the last one said, let the circle be unbroken. So that was the only line that we could say. But then once the simulation started, we started getting ripped apart. But I could still only say my one line. So we were blindfolded. So I was saying my one line, listening for someone else to say my one line, but all I could hear were the other lines. So what happened was they gave us the example of how our languages were stripped from us, and that's how they broke our communities down. And so like with my kids, I teach them how to be articulate, but I speak Black English because that unites us. That's a part of our community. And I want us to be proud of the languages that we have so that we can stay connected. Like when we lean into individualism, like Dr. Dawn said, number one, we start to think that we don't have because we're not good enough. But when we lean on each other, it's not about what I don't have because my neighbor has it. So that means I have it. So then that spirit of lack is broken because I have it. It's not even a mindset anymore. I have access to whatever people in my community have. Like I feel especially proud that so many people donated to my daycare, literally thousands of dollars poured in from the internet community. Like people I'm in a daycare group on Facebook where providers are talking about having to pay back the loans that they got and how many issues that they're having. I don't have to, I have all unattached money because I believe in the power of community. I represent my community and my community shows up for me. I am Black and Black people show up for me. And I will always lean into that. My pastor preached a sermon in 2006. I was 17 years old and he said, disconnect from the system. That was the title of it. And what I've come to understand as a Black person is that the system is trying to oppress me. Anything that they're trying to give me has stuff attached to it. I need to disconnect from a system that tears Black people down and reconnect to the system that I was born into. Because that system I was born into for a divine reason. And that's the system that I need to pour myself into because I know they're going to always show up for me.
Yes. So the connection and the community and the power that comes in ownership and belonging, those are our core needs. Those are core needs across the board. And so it definitely speaks to that and addresses that as we are able to identify and connect and belong. I want to do a couple of things, and we're really out of time, but I want to wrap this up with a nice little bow here. I want everybody to say, man, we need another show, because Clarissa, what you just said is powerful. And what for the listening audience, what the goal was to talk about the external factors, so the systems and the structures that are in place that are harmful to Black and Brown people. And that has been from the very beginning, and have never stopped. And they have just become more and more insidious. And it's not just Black and Brown people who knows that, right? They're across the board, and we've seen just countries and all kinds of nations that are erupting now, because it's just clear that what has happened here is just horrible, and has been. And so I wanted to talk about that, but I also wanted to talk about the fact that within our communities, there is behavior that's harming us as well. And we're not going to really be able to get into that because we're really too far over time, and we perhaps will come back again and have that conversation, because whereas we are, we have to hold accountability, the systems and structures that have gotten us here, that have fed into this. Whatever situation we find ourselves in, we still also have responsibility in order for us to be well within our communities. And so we do need to look out for one another, and we do need to make sure that if my household has it, your household has it. And so those things need to happen as well. So I'm not going to introduce the whole big picture that got us here, because it's a whole nother piece. But what I do want to say is, I want to say to Black and Brown people who are listening that you too have a responsibility to live well. And you have a responsibility to live well. You have a responsibility to make wise choices. You have a responsibility, to be aware and know what systems are working against, what systems work for, and what systems work against, and know what it is that will help you to live well. I'm gonna leave that piece right there. Now, so what I like to ask the three of you as we wrap up here, for the betterment of Black Lives Matter, what is your next step? But this is a question that wasn't, but because what I want to do now is talk about, and you may not have the answer, but I want to talk from a sense almost of answer and cure. What is it that you're called to do? What's your next step? If you know, I'm not sure if you know.
I can say that what the thing that I'm working on now is I am yet advocating for Black folks within structures that can be oppressive.
Okay.
So I have accepted that responsibility, and it's a difficult line to walk, because I want to be there for my people, and I want to be able to use my influence or whatever influence I have in order to benefit my people, but I can't say yes to everything, and I can't advocate for everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm doing what I can, and while at the same time maintaining my sanity,
Yeah.
in order to advocate for Black people.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And I honor you for that. I honor you for being clear about what it is that that God is calling you to do in this season of life, and making sure that you're doing that well for the group of people who need you to be Dawn and to speak up. And the self-care piece is absolutely imperative. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hinton.
Thank you.
Clarissa, what's yours?
So there's a song by Sweet Honey and the Rock. It's called Ella's Song, and it's just a song comprised of quotes by Ella Baker. And so a few of my favorites are: struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand and fight is the only way our struggle survives. And so for me, I'm gonna keep on teaching kids. Yeah. Like, I have to teach kids how to be revolutionary. And one of those ways is by helping them to remember every day that they are special. Yeah. And the other chorus says, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. And Fannie Lou Hamer was at one of Ella Baker's friends, and she said that no one's free until we're all free. That's so right. If that's the case, I can't rest until freedom comes, because as an Ella Baker trainer, I stood in that role for 5 years. But one of the things that we say is Ella Baker trainer for life. So as someone who carries the name of Ella Baker, it is absolutely my job to pass along the tools for Black liberation. So that's what I'm working on. I'm reading or listening to a book now by James H. Cone, who talks about Black liberation theology, because that's my other piece. Like, I need Christians to understand that it is scriptural to be an advocate. Proverbs 31, we always use it for sexist reasons, but Proverbs 31 also says to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, and ensure justice for those being crushed. Like, a man was literally crushed this year. Scripture tells us that it's our job to ensure justice for them. So I'm teaching Black kids and teaching Black Christians, and we're going to be all right.
Amen. I honor you for your role and for how you are so pouring into and loving on and empowering the next generation, and the next generation that will be sons and fathers, and that will lead the way for others. And so I thank you for your love and your commitment to them.
Thank you.
And to the community in general. Joy, what is your next towards this particular cause?
For me, what I see as my next is to continue to help people to understand their awareness of where they are, especially when we are moving into more and more emotional places, more and more heavy. I mean, this is not light. This is not light. This is heavy. And as we move into the weightiness of this conversation, and we move into the weightiness of this reality, as Clarissa said, teaching us how to take care of ourselves, how to be aware, how to understand, and understanding exactly what Dawn said, where she is, where you are, is where you are. And if you're aware of where you are, being able to articulate where you are in the moment. We don't have to answer any questions. We're not responsible for that. If we feel like it, fine. If we don't, then that's fine too. And wherever we are, honoring where we are. So for me, moving forward, it is going to be imperative to teach people to honor where they are in this movement, in this season, in the weightiness of the matter, in the weightiness of what is at hand.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you for the self-care piece and helping us to understand that our emotions matter and that we must care and honor for where we are and be okay with how it is that we've been called. And go ahead.
And I was just going to say that, and that is as big a part of the struggle as any, because again, there are people who are watching us. And if people are watching us and we aren't taking care of ourselves, we're abusing ourselves just as anybody else who is oppressing us, anybody else who is putting the stigma on us or whatever the case is. So if we are not willing to step out and stand on where we are and what we need, we're being just as abusive as the system that we have been forced in. So it is our responsibility to find ourselves in a place to make sure that we are cared for.
Absolutely. And so I want to speak to it, and because my role is pretty much different from everybody else's role. One, in that when we think about it from a Christian perspective, Jesus in no way came here and was weak and mild, and he didn't stay on the peripheral and fail to deal with the cultural and systemic issues of the time. He called it what it was, and he brought all the powers to bear upon the situation. And so, and for whatever that is, and so for him, there was a welcoming of everyone, but they had to honor what was just and what was equity, right? So the fairness of it, Jesus required for justice and equity. And so for my role, then I've been built just to be a bridge. I've been a bridge all of my life, and so my role is to do just as the book does, is for within the community to hold us accountable and responsible for walking out purpose and destiny, and knowing that we are brilliant and we are amazing and we are not limited and we are not, we have amazingness in us, and we have capacity to rise up and be everything that we've been created to be. We have been given the breath of God. So when God gave us his breath, this is how I generally conclude any conversation. We forfeited the right to not be amazing. So African-American folk, you don't have the right to not be amazing. You don't have that right, because you have the breath of God within you. And when he breathed into you, he gave pneuma, as he did all mankind. But right now I'm speaking to Black folk. You don't have the right to not be amazing. So it's a clarion call for you to rise, stand up and rise and do what it is that we've been called to do. Love well, teach well, reach somebody else, support well, and speak the truth. Speak the truth so we can be set free. Speak the truth so we can be free. Free in our minds, free in our relationships, free to do what it is we've been called to do. I also have the responsibility of talking to non-white folk, right? My friends and my colleagues about what it is to be Black in America, because there are some parts of that you just can't get, but we can have the conversation. And so I invite you to deal with your discomfort, to deal with the fear, to deal with the realities of that this might just work for you. And for lots of people, it works. Do you see? But if we're going to have a conversation, we're going to have an honest conversation. And it's not necessarily comfortable for me, but I have got to talk across the lines, because I've been called to talk across the lines and to eliminate where lines are. And so, so that we can, because from a Christian perspective, we are called to be together, not the same. We're called to be together, not the same. Differences are fine, but we must love and we must honor one another. And sometimes that comes with turning over tables, as Jesus did. Sometimes it comes with turning over tables. Sometimes it comes with sharing the fishes and the loaves. And so all of us need to know what our role is. And that's why I love what happened here tonight is we have different roles, and we honor that we have different roles and different responsibilities. And this here conversation. And so I am grateful for you ladies that we have had an opportunity. And I just, and what I want to do is what I haven't done before, I don't think at the end, but I just really want to speak a blessing into the atmosphere. I want to speak a blessing into the atmosphere. And so, so we call on the name of Jesus and we speak life into every role that we have. We are determined that we're going to walk it out, that we're going to walk out in power, that we're going to walk our destiny. I speak strength to these ladies to be exactly who God has called them to be. Emotional rest and emotional strength, Father God. We declare it to be so, that we are whole, that we are healthy, and that we are on assignment, bringing your people strength, bringing your people together, bringing life and love into this cause called Black Lives Matter. And I speak against the idiocy that there even has to be a conversation around this, and arresting the idea that with the absence of understanding that it is needed. So it's both needed and it's idiotic. And that's the stuff of humanity, of life. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, ladies. All right. I guess I needed to pray it out.
This was rough and heavy.
I needed to pray it out. Ladies, I am so grateful that you took your time. And I am so honored by the work that you're doing. It's needed all across the board. And so thank you, Joy, for being who you are, for being consistent and constant and always coming forth with your gift. Dawn, for being a voice for those and making sure that shelter is provided. And work and your honesty, your transparency. I'm not it. Not now. You know, this is not my. I gotta take care of me. Thank you for that honesty. And Clarissa, one of my favorite fosters. You'll always have my heart. Always have my heart for the babies. Always have my heart for your articulation of the matters, of whatever the matter is, in particular this particular matter. So thank you for your time and being here this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. To our listening audience, now you have been on Jam tonight, and we really haven't been able to get to you. Brenda says very heavy but needed. Yes, Lord. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you. Ladies are awesome. It says, hey, Dawn, amen. Yes, amen. What else do we have? Interesting and awesome forum. Clarissa, thank you, Auntie Clarissa. Lord, help us to bear all this weight. I mean, so much weight. There's so much. We should work together for a cure. Absolutely. We've got to work together ultimately. And just so much was said. Let's see. One more. Be aware when you're hurting. If you're not aware, you will bleed on people who do not cut you. And yes. So lots and lots of conversation. I'm not asking you to answer. I'm asking you to act. Why are Black people the only expected to accept apologies and reparation? And so for me personally, the conversation is imperative. I've been created to have conversations. So the conversation is imperative. And so it's so important for us to know why and how we've been created, because a person who doesn't have the capacity for the conversation doesn't need to have the conversation on both sides of the fence, on both sides, because we're not going to go anywhere. right? So we've got to be, our children have got to see that we will be determined to walk out the role that God has given us to walk out. So we've got to be clear about that. So at any rate, I'm going to end that conversation right there. I want to thank everybody, all of your comments and all of your time. Thank you for being in there, hanging in there with us over a little bit, but it's a necessary conversation. I have been created to help people live their potential in places of possibility, purpose, and to walk it out in the way we think, in our emotions, and with relationships. It's why God put me on this earth. And so I invite you to continue to follow us. Go to drkatherinejames.com. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram, where we come every day and have a life-giving conversation about walking out purpose. Listen, beloved, you are amazing. You're brilliant. God has put part of him in you, and he gave you your life as a gift. What you do back with that is your gift back to God. And so we have a responsibility to take this life and do unbelievable, indescribable things, really unapologetically. As long as you're being you, honoring you. If you're honoring yourself, you're honoring God, you're going to automatically honor other people. And so honor God with the life that you have. Live it the best that you can. And the world will remember that you came through, At the moment in which Abba gave us his breath, we forfeited the right to not be amazing. If no one has told you recently, or whether you believe it or not, you are amazing, because the DNA in you is stuff of amazingness, indescribable amazingness. Until we come together again. Talk to you soon, beloved.